Who is your father? In one part of the world, that question has more than one answer, literally. Deep inside the Amazon, among the Barí, a pregnant woman can take another man to bed, not in secret, not as betrayal, with her husband's full approval. And when the child is born, that man becomes a father. Not a stepfather, not an outsider, a real father, recognized, expected, bound. And the husband? He doesn't resist it, he supports it. Because in this system, more fathers mean more providers, and more providers mean the child survives. This is not rumor. This is not myth. This is documented reality. Tonight, we step inside this social code to understand how it works, why men accept it. And once you see it clearly, you may never look at fatherhood the same way again. In the mountains between Venezuela and Colombia, the Barí live in isolation. Dense jungle, brutal survival. A place where one failed hunt means hunger, where one injury means death, where one mistake can erase a bloodline. In that world, they didn't just adapt, they engineered. They have no word for illegitimate child. Because in their world, that category never had to exist. Certainty was never the point. When anthropologists first documented this, it forced a question modern science wasn't ready for. What if fatherhood was never designed to belong to one man? Here's how the system works. A woman marries. Her husband becomes the primary father, recognized by the community, the visible authority. But during pregnancy, the architecture shifts. She is permitted to take additional partners, men she selects, men the tribe accepts. And here is the belief that drives everything. Every man who sleeps with her during pregnancy contributes to the child. Not ceremonially, genetically. This belief, partible paternity, holds that a child carries multiple biological fathers, each contributing to its physical formation. The fetus is not created in a single moment. It is constructed, layer by layer, contribution by contribution. And when that child is born, every one of those men becomes a father, each expected to provide food, protection, support. No one exits, no one negotiates. Because in this system, fatherhood is not about certainty, it is about accountability. And here is what most people misunderstand. This is not random. This is not chaos. This is architecture. Because in environments like this, multiple fathers mean distributed risk. Each additional provider reduces the margin for failure. And in a jungle that punishes weakness, that margin is everything. This is survival mathematics. And once survival becomes the priority, everything you assumed about fatherhood collapses. Let's be precise about what's happening here. A Barí woman is not cheating. She is engineering her child's survival. Because in a place where survival is fragile, you don't gamble everything on one man. One hunter has a bad season. The child still eats. Because another man shows up with fish, another with meat, another with something when it matters most. If one disappears, the system holds. If one fails, the child is still protected. No single point of failure. No single provider to lose. The child becomes a collective obligation. And now every man has a reason to stay, a role in the process, a name attached to a child. That's not promiscuity, that's calculation. And the selection is not random. The woman is deliberate, choosing men with complementary skills, a skilled hunter, a strong builder, a man with standing in the community. Each one fills a gap the next man can't. This is not passion. This is portfolio management applied to human survival. And in a jungle where one dry season can close every option, that portfolio is the difference between a child who reaches adulthood and one who doesn't. And the husband? He sees a second father not as a rival, but as a second layer of insurance. One man's body can break. One man's resolve can fracture. One man's season can fail. But multiple men, tied to the same child, create a structure that doesn't bend. This system wasn't inherited blindly, it was refined, until it stopped being tradition and became proof. So what does the science actually say? Western evolutionary theory built one central assumption: paternity certainty is non-negotiable. The logic was simple: a man invests in a child only if he is certain that child carries his genes. No certainty, no investment, no survival. One man, one woman, one father. Not a preference, a biological imperative. The Barí never followed that rule. Their entire system is built on the opposite: paternity uncertainty. And yet investment still happens. Not from one man, from many. Voluntarily, without legal compulsion, driven purely by expectation. Which creates a contradiction modern biology wasn't built to explain. If certainty disappears, investment should collapse. That's what the theory predicts. But here, it doesn't collapse. It multiplies. And the Barí are not alone. Across lowland South America, this pattern appears repeatedly. Different tribes, different ecosystems, same conclusion. An entire region where the Western exception becomes the indigenous norm. Where the nuclear family never existed, not because it collapsed, but because it was never the structure to begin with. So the real question becomes measurable. Does a child with multiple recognized fathers have a higher survival rate than a child with only one? Because if the answer is yes, one of the most fundamental assumptions in human evolutionary biology has been wrong for 200 years. Researchers didn't speculate. They tracked Barí children across multiple generations, across every condition the jungle could produce. And when the numbers came back, the result wasn't subtle. Children with a secondary father were significantly more likely to survive. Not slightly, not marginally, but clearly noticeably. A single additional father changed the odds. And when multiple fathers are involved, the survival rate climbs even higher. Each additional man is not a luxury. He is a layer, another buffer between the child and every threat the environment produces. Once multiple men claim a child, that child becomes untouchable, not by law, by consequence. No man risks harming a child connected to another man who stands beside him. In a single father structure, one shield, one line of exposure. In a multi-father structure, every direction covered. Children in this system don't just survive more, they survive better. And what researchers couldn't dismiss was the consistency. It held across generations, which means this system isn't luck, it is design. Let's remove the assumption immediately. This is not a system where men lose. It is a system where men adapt. And in adapting, they gain. 3 things. First, access. A man who participates is not pushed to the edge of the social structure. He is pulled into it. Relationships are structured, reciprocal, understood. A man who is trusted becomes a man who is chosen again and again. Second, alliances. The moment a man becomes a secondary father, he is no longer an outsider to that family. He is connected to it, and that family is connected to him. In a world where survival depends on cooperation, that bond is not emotional, it is structural. One man alone is always one bad season from collapse. But a network absorbs the hit. A network survives what one man cannot. Third, genetic reach. Even without certainty, a man increases his probability of passing something forward. Not through ownership, through presence. More connections, more reach. And over time, that compounds. So let's be clear. This is not weakness. This is not confusion. This is calculation. Access, alliance, advantage. 3 distinct returns built into a system outsiders often misread as loss. But the men inside it aren't losing. They are building leverage. And once multiple men are tied to the same child, to the same outcome, the entire community tightens. Everyone has a stake. Everyone shows up. That is not a side effect. That is the point. Compare two systems. In the first, one man is assigned. Responsibility flows through a single channel. When that channel breaks, the child waits. The system intervenes. That is the modern model. In the second, no one is assigned. And yet multiple men show up. Willingly. Consistently. Without being told. Because fatherhood here doesn't begin with a legal declaration. It begins before the child takes its first breath. The Barí didn't stumble into this. They built it. One central problem. How do you keep a child alive when one man cannot be guaranteed to survive? Their answer wasn't negotiation. It was multiplication. Replace one channel with a web. A structure anchored from multiple directions, where no single break can bring it down. What outsiders call chaos, the Barí call function. What outsiders call unnatural, the Barí call tested. Because this system has been running longer than any legal system enforcing the alternative. And it has been winning. Not by argument, by outcome. The Barí system was never built for export. It was built for survival, for a specific environment, a specific pressure, a specific reality. But what it proves is far bigger than one tribe. The human family is not fixed. It adapts. It reconfigures. It solves problems rigid systems cannot. And in this case, it solved one of the hardest problems any culture has ever faced. How do you keep a child alive when survival is never guaranteed? Not with laws, not with courts, with design. And when researchers compiled the data across tribes, across conditions, across generations, the conclusion couldn't be softened. The system that looked unnatural outperformed the one called natural, under maximum pressure, no enforcement, no institutions, just people, and a system that worked. And that leaves one final question. If the Barí system outperforms under extreme conditions, what does that say about the model the modern world calls inevitable? Because the nuclear family was never tested against the jungle. And the jungle always tells the truth. If this made you rethink something you were certain about, you're exactly where this channel is built for. Hit subscribe, because this is what we do here. We find the systems the world forgot to question, the traditions they told you were wrong, the structures that survived longer than the laws built to replace them, and we bring them into the light. The next one drops soon. Don't miss it.